Good afternoon and welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. I'm Marisol Diaz, Communications and Digital Manager. Give me a second while I welcome our Spanish-speaking neighbors. Buenas tardes, soy Marisol Díaz, gerente de Comunicaciones Digitales y bienvenidos a 3 en punto con SOC. Si quieren acceso al programa en español, favor de marcar el número que aparece en la pantalla, que es 646-749-3122 y cuando le contestan la llamada, marque la contraseña que es 779-328-221. Si quieren ver episodios pasados, los pueden buscar aquí en nuestro Facebook en la sección de videos y también en YouTube. All right, now I'll go ahead and pass it over to the moderator of the day who will introduce today's topic.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. I am Marlene Zaran, the Public Health Coordinator here at the Southside Organizing Center. I will be moderating today. I will be taking the spot for Gabe today since she is busy with something else. And I just wanted to say that we do have simultaneous interpretation available, like Marisol did already introduce, and you can definitely go to 646-749-3122, and then you put in a code. The code is 779-328-221. I just want to let you guys know you can access these videos through our Facebook page. They will always be uploaded in both English and Spanish. And I want to ask that everyone, put your favorite emoji or say hello to us in the comment section. It's always great to see who's engaged. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce the guest segment that we have for today. It's a pre-recorded video with Jill Underlie. She's the Superintendent of Public Instruction candidate, and it's an interview of her. So let me just go ahead and share my screen for that.
Jill Underlie of Hollandale is one of 7 candidates for the office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. The primary is February 16th. The general election is April 6th. Jill, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've enjoyed interviewing. You're the 6th candidate, and I have a standard opening question. You have 1 minute to describe why you're the most qualified candidate.
All right, very good. My platform is all about equity, giving every child what they need every day. And this was crafted from my own experiences as a parent of 2 children, a teacher, an elementary and high school principal, a UW student affairs professional, and an administrator at DPI, both in educator licensing and in Title I, which is federal programs that I worked on in Milwaukee and Green Bay. And most lately as the superintendent of the Pecatonica Area School District. I'm all about public schools, 100% all the way. I support public schools and I'll advocate for increased funding in mental health, early childhood, and teacher recruitment. Plus, I'm the only candidate who's currently leading a school district during the pandemic. I've seen firsthand the inequities that exist in our neediest schools. The pandemic has amplified the needs for universal early childhood programming, affordable high-speed wireless internet, and the need for collaboration. And I have experience working with school boards, administrators, union leaders, legislators, and professional organizations at the local, state, and federal level.
Well, I want to talk about one provision on your campaign site. Adequate and fair funding. Can you be more specific? Are you talking about going beyond the 2/3 state funding? Are you talking about reducing the amount of property taxes that goes for K-12? Talk to me a little bit more about what adequate and fair funding means, please.
Sure. Adequate and fair funding means that every school has what they need, or every school district has what they need to provide for the kids. We have always said that the promise has been 2/3 funding, and we know that that promise, especially in the last decade and a half, has not materialized. We see a lot of discrepancies, especially with the introduction of new categorical aids such as per pupil aids. And also our school districts do not get fully reimbursed for special education costs. And so, you know, right now it's around 30%. And so our school districts have to transfer large sums from their general fund to cover special education, because we have to balance those out. And my district transfers almost $500,000 every year. And that money comes from programs that serve all kids. And so the state needs to step up their obligation.
What about now? You said you're the only superintendent that's been dealing with COVID. Talk about the criteria that determines when a district must go online and when it can go back to in person. Should there be a statewide criteria, or should it stay on a school district by school district basis, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously a hot issue, and as you indicated, it's a very complicated one as well. But when you think about it, we have to keep our kids safe as well as our staff safe. And so the criteria that go into that is, can we keep our kids safe and staff safe? You look at facilities, you look at the age of buildings, you know, the fresh air intake, for example. We look at the capacity to space kids out. My school district has given parents the option of in-person or being entirely virtual, and parents seem to like that choice. But I get that not every school district can have that choice. It needs to be a local decision made jointly with school boards, county or local health officials, teachers and union leaders and administrators, and parents. And so that's what we did. Last summer we met and we developed our plan to reopen, and we made sure all the voices were heard.
Well, you earlier you said that your district has about 400 students. I'm just curious, what percentage are back in person and what percentage are online? Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely. The beginning of the semester, I'm saying like back in September, it was about 80% were in person and 20% were online. And since then, that 20% has dwindled down to maybe around 8 or 5%, you know, between 5 and 8%. So not very many kids now, but sometimes we, you know, like I said, we give parents that option. We don't, you know, we don't penalize kids for it, of course, either. So it's been very fluid.
The state now is getting ready to vaccinate teachers beginning in March 1. This is an issue. I'm going to ask specifically about our two largest districts, MPS, Milwaukee Public Schools, and Madison. Do you think teachers should be vaccinated before they go back to in person? And I'm only asking about our two largest urban districts. Sure. What your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that would be a wise path to consider. Part of the reason that we have to keep our schools closed and go virtual is because if our staff do get sick, we don't have enough subs or enough staff to cover those classes. And so other than a health and safety reason of obviously we want people to be safe, it's really a staffing issue. And I think, you know, our largest urban districts struggle, you know, with recruiting and retaining teachers just as much as our rural school districts do. And our sub pools are consistently older, often retired teachers. And so I think, you know, that should be on the table for sure.
Well, there was I want to ask you about debate in the state Senate. It was about 2 weeks ago. There was an amendment offer that said, while there is an emergency pandemic, test scores should not be made public. What's your feeling about that, please?
You know, I get a lot of questions on this. Again, it's really an issue of equity. I mean, what are the scores going to tell us? If we test, and what it's going to show is that the best resourced kids, the ones with the most opportunities, are going to weather this just fine. So my advice or my recommendation would be to focus on local assessments, and let's ensure access to the curriculum through virtual or face-to-face instruction and move forward in that respect.
Have you got some students in your school district that do not have, or because of the geography, they do not have internet at home? How are your teachers reaching them?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did was we issued every child a Chromebook 2 years ago. So we were well situated, I suppose, when the pandemic hit back in March of last year. So what we did was, for the kids who struggled with internet access, we issued them a hotspot. And so that really reached the vast majority of our kids back in the spring. And we haven't had many issues with that since the fall. It's like there's different things that we can do, around that, like with like boosters and things like that we can issue too. So they have access.
The achievement gap numbers in MPS, Madison, and Racine are really kind of stunning. How would you close those achievement gap numbers as superintendent?
Sure. So that's a very good question, and obviously it's very concerning. My plan is to start young. And again, I prefer the term opportunity gaps, because when you say achievement, we're really putting that responsibility on the kids for this gap. And in reality, it's from a century of racist state and local policies that have denied opportunities to kids based on skin color, gender, ability, and socioeconomic status. So let's get every child what they need every day. Early childhood education, well-trained and passionate educators, and mental health support. And again, fund our public schools the way that they should be funded, because then that's what provides the opportunities for our kids to be successful.
When I look at the state budget, choice has grown over the last 20, 25 years. Now it's a $750 million item. Should it be held where it is? Should it be expanded? Should it be dialed back? Choice.
So right now, I think it's too much. Public education dollars must go to public schools. I would be advocating for a freeze or a moratorium on voucher school expansion for starters. And most people throughout the state have no idea how much of their tax dollars goes to private school vouchers and choice. And so I would work to make sure that our public statewide rural and urban school districts and the communities in those are more educated on this.
Well, the COVID-19, what has it taught you as a as a veteran about the mental health impact on our K-12 students, please?
Yeah, certainly there's things such as technology that we were worried about before the pandemic hit. We were always worried about kids' mental health because of technology and their increased isolation, anxiety, and depression. What I've learned is that we need to keep the resources we have to get more resources to our kids, but that kids are also resilient. They've been taught to reach out, to adults. And some of the best strengths I want to say about working in a rural community, as well as in an urban community, when teachers have those connections to kids reach out to their teachers. And so, mental health was certainly one of those inequities that we saw before the pandemic, and the pandemic just really amplified the need for more mental health services in our schools. But kids are resilient, and I do want to, put more resources towards mental health for our kids.
School districts have been living with revenue limits for more than 20 years. Is it time to get rid of those limits?
Yeah, I think so. In my experience, so at Pecatonica, we've had to go to 2 referendums while I've been superintendent. And really, every time we pass a referendum in Wisconsin, and this last election, I think it was over 90% of operational referendums passed. I mean, clearly we have people who support their public schools. But what that also does is every time a referendum is passed, it makes our school funding system more inequitable. So I think, we need a new funding system in Wisconsin, and perhaps it shouldn't have revenue limits. I think the other question we need to ask is that, the amount of money that goes to voucher schools and independent charter schools, they don't ever have to go to referendum. They never have to ask taxpayers for increasing their revenue, because they get their money right off the top. And so we need a new funding system that is equitable both for urban and rural schools.
With that new funding system, would it be a stipend? The state would guarantee X amount per child, and then local districts could add to that? Are you talking about a per pupil grant?
I mean, that's one way to look at it. Again, it's kind of going back to the 2/3 funding, right? And the promise of public schooling in Wisconsin and making sure that our schools have what they need to be successful.
Okay. Let me ask you this, since I've asked all the other candidates. So you're a classroom teacher, civics or government. How would you teach about what happened in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, please?
Sure. So I am a former social studies teacher. I didn't know if you knew that or not. And since January 6th, I've thought considerably, what I would have done or how I would have taught it. And first, I think we need to acknowledge that there's still a lot of shock still about that day and a lot of pressure on our teachers to bring that day and its lessons to life. So how would I teach it? We need to ensure that kids understand that there are 3 branches of government and none is more powerful than the other. They also need to understand and accept that the United States' democracy and its legitimacy is based on a peaceful transfer of power. And I think I would dissect the day's events, the timeline perhaps hour by hour, minute by minute as to what was happening in all areas of the federal government and around the Capitol, almost an investigative look at it, and have the kids be the journalists in that situation.
Okay, maybe one final question. We've talked about a bunch of issues. I want to give you a chance to talk about an issue that's central to your campaign that we haven't landed on yet, please.
Sure. Well, I'm really excited and looking forward to getting to work. And I think that there are some low-hanging fruit, such as expanding early childhood access for our kids, getting them interventions early on, and setting them up for a lifetime of success. It makes my heart glow just to think about how all the good that we could accomplish in Wisconsin in both our rural and urban communities with small acts such as universal early childhood programming, because every kid deserves these things every day.
Very good. Thank you. Jill Underlee of Hollandale is one of 7 candidates for the office of State Superintendent of Public Instruction. The primary is February 16th. The general election is April 6th. Jill, thank you so much for talking to Wisconsin Eye. Appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Stay safe. Thank you. Deborah Kerr of Caledonia is one of 7 candidates for the office of State Superintendent of Public Instruction. The primary is February 16th. The general election is April 6th. Deborah, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you very much.
Well, time is limited. I know you're busy, and I've got a long list of questions, but take a minute and give us your elevator speech on why you're the most qualified to be State Superintendent, please. I'm counting. Okay.
Okay, here we go. I've dedicated the last 40 years of my life to education. I've worked in all sectors of education. I'm parochial educated. I've taught in the private school. I've created a 4K charter school, and I've dedicated the last 34 years of my life to public education. I'm an award-winning teacher, principal, high school athletic director, successful basketball coach, and I've also worked in rural schools as well as suburban schools. I have been elected presidential leadership at the Milwaukee Rotary, our state superintendent's organization as president, and our national state superintendent's association. And so I have great relationships with people on both sides of the aisle. I have advocated for kids for the last 5 years at Congress and at the state capitol, and I have gotten teacher licensing laws changed and implemented to put more teachers into the pipeline. And I've got the energy and passion to do it. And if you need more information, kerrforkids.com will tell my whole story. But I've also the only candidate who has closed achievement gaps, raised graduation rates for kids of color, and won state and national awards of character.
Okay, well done. Okay.
All right.
My turn. Questions. The
Okay.
impact of the pandemic on our K-12 schools. What's been the biggest, most significant damage to our K-12 schools? What's your vision for our K-12 schools post-pandemic? Please, ma'am.
This pandemic has exacerbated all of the inequities that we've known existed for a long time. And so we need to address the extensive learning loss of all of our kids. All of our kids are not winning right now in Wisconsin, Steve. And we've got to come together as communities to make sure that all of our kids are served and served well. That means equitable technology, robust internet, food insecurity issues have to be dealt with. But now we got to get back to face-to-face instruction. I am the only candidate that's come out with a statewide plan to do so. Our administrators and our leaders are ready to do that. Our teachers want to come back and see our kids. our parents have been heroic in dealing with this virtual learning and their abilities to support us. And so it's now time to get back to business and get back to putting our kids back on track to achieve excellence in all that they do.
Should there be a statewide standard for when schools are online or in person in light of COVID? Because right now that's on a, as you know, on a school board by school board basis.
I support local control, working hand in hand with our health department. The problem we've had in Wisconsin, there's just been a lack of meaningful leadership at all levels. And so school superintendents and district leaders and school boards have had to shoulder this burden of the pandemic. And so we know that we've got schools that are open all across the state because the science of the data shows that it's safe to do so. But our concern is right now is this risk is always going to be with us until this vaccine is further given to all people. But we just have to figure out how can we lower the risk and mitigate the risk of this disease so that it's safe for all people to come back to school. And maybe that's in smaller groups. I propose that all of our elementaries come back as soon as possible. Those kids need us, and their social emotional development needs are critical at this time.
Well, I want to ask you about something that I think is going to be debated on the floor of both the Senate and the Assembly this week. It's a provision that says that 2/3 of a local school board must vote to continue only online every 14 days. What's your position on that proposal that I expect to be debated in the Capitol this week?
Well, I'm hoping that everyone understands that local school boards have the right to make those decisions. And I think it's based upon their community, the parents, what they want to do. And so right now, I know that our parents have indicated that most of them want to come back. Having school boards have to come and meet every couple of weeks, I think would be very difficult, especially for, these are volunteer positions in our communities. And so I'm not sure that provision could be implemented with fidelity, but I do understand the thought of trying to get our kids back to school.
I want to ask you about a amendment that was debated on the floor of the state Senate, I think within the last 10 days. It said that in light of the pandemic, school test scores should not be made public until the pandemic is over. What's your position on that, please?
Assessment data is critical for us to understand where our kids are now and where we need to go with them into the future. The problem with the publication of those standardized tests, we don't get them in time to make any decisions that are thoughtful and meaningful. And so I know our teachers want to test our kids. The research is showing that some of our kids are more than a year behind. We've got to deal with this achievement gap now and start today.
Let's go right into the achievement gap. You and I know it's worse in some of our urban cities. Your recommendations to close that achievement gap, especially since you just said it's getting worse as a result of the pandemic, please.
We're first going to start, when I'm elected, with a reading roadmap that's going to be pre-K through third grade. We need to have alignment of evidence-based practices and assessments to mark our kids' proficiency and growth in reading. Right now, we have over 400 different ways of teaching reading in the state of Wisconsin. We have to focus on literacy. As we all know, that's the gateway to a successful future. And I think if we align those practices with the metrics that really matter and make sure our teachers have high quality staff development and our principals have the support to implement it, we can start to see growth right away. The biggest 5 districts across the state have the largest minority populations. I think that if we work collectively with them, we can start to see improvement and growth within 1 year.
What has the pandemic done in terms of the needs, the mental health needs of our K-12 students, please?
Our kids have experienced a lot of trauma through this pandemic, and I think it's going to be very crucial as much as our heroic teachers have tried to connect with our kids online and nurture those relationships. We know that we have to address those right away. And so until we address the mental health needs and the social emotional needs of our kids, they're not going to learn well. And so I know that many schools across the state of Wisconsin have already put great programs in place. They're partnering with their local clinicians and therapists to make sure our kids and families have what they need. We're going to have these partnerships moving forward more than we ever have in the past to make sure the needs of our kids and parents are being served well. And let's not forget our teachers too.
Fiscal Bureau documents show that choice is now a $750 million item in the state budget. Your position on choice, should it be further expanded? Should it be held where it is, or should it be dialed back, please?
Let's talk about this for a second, because I really think it's important. This has been legislated through law. The state superintendent does not have the authority to make any changes on this, but what I want to do is I want to bring all the stakeholders to the table. Nobody has ever done that. I want one system of accountability and full transparency and equitable access. So what is that going to look like? So I want to work with all the stakeholders to accomplish just that. As my job as the state superintendent, and a lot of people don't know this, I'm in charge of all these schools. It's within my purview to oversee and support these children. And so if we are going to truly be equitable in what we do, we have to serve all kids and be concerned about the welfare of all kids. And so I want to work together and move our state forward to create a world-class education system. And I can't do that with only serving half the kids.
Please talk to me about your feelings on the issues, the unique needs of rural schools, please.
I have walked a mile in the shoes of our rural educators, and I know they're some of the most creative and innovative leaders across the state. But there are challenges also parallel and mirror some of the urban challenges with mental health, with poverty, with lack of robust internet, and the inability to hire qualified teachers. I want to work with our rural leaders and the Rural School Alliance to make changes and differences. Perhaps looking at how we can get more teachers into the pipeline by paying those rural teachers a higher salary. But their support and their needs are just as important as the kids in the urban settings.
The revenue limits that school districts have been living with for more than 20 years. Is it time to get rid of those limits that have protected property taxes?
Well, I think what's important to realize is those funding formulas have been put in place to recognize equity and social justice. However, remember when those formulas were first started, we only had to serve one sector of education, and that was public schools. I think it's time for us to bring some people together, business partners included, and the DPI, and the people who do the state finance every day, to take a look. Could we do a CPI increase every year to stay current? Because all of our bills at the local level have continued to escalate. But when those revenue limits don't allow us flexibility, it requires us to make cuts in programs that are essential to a comprehensive education.
Do we need to go back to 2/3 state funding of our K-12 schools, Deborah?
Absolutely. I think we know that if we can invest the money in the right places, we're going to get better outcomes. But we're going to have to restore and renew our relationships with the educators and the legislature to make sure we're putting our money in the right places. So one thing I want to do is make sure that the DPI is spending their money in an equitable fashion. And I want to conduct an equity audit that would allow us to look at that. One of my wonderings is we don't get a lot of federal money, and I know we have a lot of needs. So I want to take a look at that right away.
Here's a theoretical. If you were teaching a class on what happened at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, how would you do it?
This has been a part of our democracy in that people can come together and have a voice. However, there's a way to do it respectfully and making sure people understand who you are. I think it was important for kids to have this conversation because our kids need a voice in education. And so I believe there's a way to help our students understand that, you know, our democracy allows us to have a voice and choices in America. And so I want to work with kids to say, you know what? These are the issues that happen. We have to understand the why and what are some of those root causes and what would you do differently? And I think we need to ask our kids to be part of this conversation moving forward.
Okay, I went to your website. You've highlighted a number of issues. I just want to give you a chance. Is there any one issue that is central to your campaign that I haven't asked about yet? Please.
I believe we need to connect the dots with our businesses and industries in Wisconsin to create strength-based pathways. Right now, we know we have shortages in many sectors. That includes the trades, the teachers, IT, agriculture, healthcare. We need to connect the dots and create the opportunities for our kids to understand the great career opportunities out there for all of our kids. And I think it needs to start in elementary school. And so I would like to work with all of those stakeholders to make sure our kids have career and college and other aspirations taught to them all throughout their educational process. They need to see people who look like them doing these great jobs. And we can no longer just promote college or career. It's college and career and military. And so my campaign has a promise, our Wisconsin promise. We will promise to know every child by name, passion, strength, and need, ready to go into a future that they choose.
Thank you. Deborah Kerr of Caledonia is one of 7 candidates for the office of State Superintendent of Public Instruction. The primary is February 16th, the general election, April 6th. Deborah, thank you so much for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you very much, Steve. Have a good day on Wisconsin.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, that was a great interview. And now I have a video for you guys with Dr. Arana. She's the Director of Pediatrics from 16th Street Clinic, and she's going to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine and her experience getting the COVID-19 vaccine.
Hi, everybody. We're here with Doctora Arana with us today from 16th Street Clinic to talk about different topics relating to the COVID-19 vaccine. So can you just go ahead and talk to us about your experience taking the COVID-19 vaccine?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me today. I already completed both dose 1 and dose 2 of the Pfizer vaccine. And with the first vaccine, I only had that sore muscle on that area where we got the injection. And that's very common to any vaccines. I don't think that was out of the ordinary. And 3 weeks after that, I got the second dose. And as you have heard probably, some people get a little bit more reaction with the second dose, what we call a normal response from your immune system. You get the second dose, and some people have just the sore muscle, but others, as I did, can get a little bit of chills or headache the day after the vaccine. Nothing that would stop me from working or doing my daily activities. If someone has fever, it's okay to take a dose of acetaminophen or Tylenol, but most people don't need to take anything.
Great. And can you explain a little bit about why the vaccine has to be administered in 2 doses? Why are there 2 different shots?
Yes, and that applies to some vaccines, not to all of them. As you probably have heard, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, they all have recommended 2 doses. And the first dose helps your immune system to learn about the spike protein and how to block the function of the spike protein of the coronavirus. The second shot brings more like an awareness for your immune system. The goal is to create some kind of memory in your immune system that we think is going to last at least a year or more. So if you get infected, your immune system has strong memory. So the first one is kind of training for your immune system, and the second one is a booster to really make sure that the immune system remembers how to fight and block the spike protein.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I really like that way of putting it. It's training and then the real go. I like that. And so we also understand that health professionals are receiving their COVID vaccines right now as we speak, and has everyone or those who wanted to at the 16th Street Clinic, have they been vaccinated, and has everyone reacted well to it?
Yes, basically all of us are vaccinated. That we still have a group that is waiting for the date where they are due for the second dose, and everyone has been vaccinated. Very few exceptions felt a little bit of a headache, malaise the day after the second dose, but no one that had to miss work or had any serious adverse effects. We didn't have any allergic reactions here. We are currently vaccinating all patients 65 and older. And also, I know that Children's Hospital, it has started vaccinating caregivers of children with special needs, children that are bound to wheelchair and need a ventilator or has tracheostomies, really complex medically. So at this point, those caregivers are getting vaccinated, and next will be children 16 and older that have very complex medical conditions.
Great. Thank you for sharing all that information and for being with us today, and we'll have you on another time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So Dr. Arana there kind of explained her experience with the COVID vaccine. I just want to let you guys know of some of the links we just put in the comments section. So if you go to the city.milwaukee.gov/COVIDvax site, it's the Milwaukee Public Health Department site where you can go right in and register to get your COVID-19 vaccine. Once you register, someone will give you a call and let you know of the facility and location that you will have access to, and then you can create an appointment. And then another site that we have is the www.healthymke.com, where you can register for the COVID-19 vaccine through that as well. Another place that you can register to get the COVID vaccine is definitely also Walgreens and other facilities around Milwaukee. But one pharmacy that I'd like to definitely emphasize is Hyatt Pharmacy. They're located on West Layton Avenue, and they are currently doing COVID testing and COVID vaccinations. So you don't have to necessarily register through their website, but you can just to have that appointment there. You can register at Hyatt, so it's HAYATRX.com, which is also in the comments section as well for you guys. You can register through that site, or you can just walk in. So they're having a walk-in clinic right now for your COVID-19 vaccine. So you can go right in there and get your COVID-19 vaccine. I'm not exactly sure which COVID-19 vaccine they have access to. I do think it is the Pfizer vaccine, but you know, whatever vaccine option you can get your hands on during this time is best. As of March 22nd, those that are living in some of these zip codes that I'm going to list off here can now go get vaccinated. So if you are living in the following zip codes and you're 18 and up, you can go get your COVID vaccine and you can walk in. So that zip code is 53204, 53206, 53205, 53218, 53215, 53223, 53216, 53209, 53224, 53233 are the zip codes. As of today, you can go right in with no health issues. If you don't live in those zip codes and you have medical conditions that are can make you eligible, that are severe, you know, and they can give you risk for COVID-19, you can go in as well. I have the zip codes here, so I'm going to put them in the chat for you all, in the comment section for you all. So these are the zip codes that you can go right now and get your COVID-19 vaccine at any walk-in clinic. And the Southside and National Avenue walk-in clinics in the Wisconsin Health Center are still doing walk-in clinics for vaccines right now as well. And you can also check out this website, the 16th Street Clinic website, for all of the different individuals that are currently eligible to get their COVID-19 vaccine. I'm going to put in the different health conditions that individuals individuals do consider a part of the eligibility to get their COVID-19 vaccine right now. So all of those different types of, chronic diseases or illnesses are listed in our comments section. And we're also going to put for you guys the 16th Street Clinic site. So you have access to that information right away. So here's the link for 16th Street Clinic. And if you are a 16th Street Clinic, if you are currently a 16th Street Clinic patient, you can call them and make an appointment, and they can get you your COVID-19 vaccine right now. Since the Governor Evers has given a huge amount of money to the COVID-19 vaccine project, we now have an ample amount of COVID vaccines, and Wisconsin's actually ranked number 4 in the United States for coronavirus vaccinations. So that's really good. So, hopefully by the time we get 80% of individuals vaccinated, this means we'll have herd immunity and things will start to go back to normal. So that being said, I just want to say who else is coming on for the rest of the week. So on Wednesday, we will be having someone on named Brandy Hernandez. She's going to be talking about services that law offers and public allies. So that's definitely a fun one. And then Dr. Monique Liston will be coming on. And then we also have someone from the 16th Street Clinic manager of vaccinations coming on to talk about vaccines through 16th Street Clinic as well. So that being said, I'd just like to conclude you all for today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And I'll leave you with a pre-recorded survey video, and we have the survey link in the comments section. Thank you.
Has this live forum been informative and useful to you? What part of the forum could be improved or changed to make it better? Please take a quick survey that's located in the comments section so that we can keep 3 o'clock with SOC going for residents. Thank you for tuning in.